Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's start. My name is Alara Whitman. I'm 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my father said I looked like a stranger who wandered into the wrong family. He would tilt my chin toward the light, studying my hazel eyes and copper hair like they were flaws in a blueprint. Not mine, he'd murmur, sometimes smiling, sometimes not. What began as a joke hardened into a belief. By the time I was old enough to understand genetics, I understood something else too. I was the doubt that lived in our house. 6 weeks before my wedding, he decided he was done pretending. It was Sunday dinner in the house he loved more than any of us. 5 bedrooms, imported marble, oil paintings he referred to as assets. My mother had set the table with her Wedgwood china. My older brother, Adrian, Columbia graduate, private equity analyst, my father's pride in human form, sat upright, already aligned with whatever verdict would be delivered. My father cleared his throat and slid a document across the oak table toward me. "I won't attend your wedding," he said evenly. "Not until we settle this." It was a consent form for a paternity test. His signature was already inked at the bottom. 6 weeks, he continued. "Make the results public to the family. If you're mine, I'll apologize. If not, we stop this farce." My mother whispered his name like a plea. He didn't look at her. I looked at his watch, a silver omega he polished nightly, and realized this moment had been rehearsed in his mind for 27 years. I folded the paper once. "I'll consider it," I said. What I didn't say was that I was tired of being the exhibit in a case that never closed. Growing up, everything circled back to me. When Adrian was accepted to Columbia, tuition was wired the next morning. When I got into nursing school, my father leaned back in his chair and said, "Your real father can pay for that." I took loans, worked double shifts, studied between midnight and dawn. The debt was heavy, but not as heavy as watching my mother shrink under accusations she never deserved. Every argument in that house, about money, vacations, even the weather, eventually curved toward her supposed betrayal. I was the living evidence. The night before I left for college, my grandmother pressed a thick envelope into my hands. "Keep every hospital record," she said quietly. "Sometimes mistakes don't stay buried." I didn't understand her then. I do now. When I told my fiancé, Rowan, about the ultimatum, he didn't hesitate. "Take the test," he said. "End it." But I didn't use the clinic my father suggested. I chose an independent lab across town. If I was going to detonate this myth, I wanted control over the blast. 2 weeks later, at my father's 60th birthday dinner at the Harbour Club, he toasted honesty in family. Then he looked directly at me. "Some birds lay eggs in other nests," he said lightly. "Beautiful, but misplaced." A few relatives laughed. My mother stared at her lap. Something inside me went still. Not shame, not rage, resolve. The next morning, I submitted 3 samples. Mine willingly, my mother's with steady hands and tear-bright eyes. "Whatever this says," she whispered, "you are mine." My father's, from a few strands of hair lifted from the brush in the guest bathroom. 3 weeks later, the email arrived. The subject line was clinical. DNA analysis results. Secure document. The first line confirmed what I expected. 0% match with my father. A strange calm spread through me. 27 years of suspicion, and he had been wrong about her fidelity. Then I read the second line. 0% match with my mother. I reread it until the words lost meaning. Called the lab. Asked about contamination, clerical errors, switched vials. There were none. The results were conclusive. I was not biologically related to either of my parents. I sat on the kitchen floor, the refrigerator humming behind me, and let that truth settle into my bones. My father had been wrong about the affair, but he had been right about one thing. I wasn't his daughter. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house before he returned from golf. My mother was in the sunroom with her tea, sunlight pooling at her feet. I handed her my phone. I watched the colour drain from her face. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "I remember the clock. You were born at 11:52. The doctor joked about missing midnight." I closed my eyes. The birth certificate said 11:41, an 11-minute discrepancy. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. Hospitals make mistakes. "If I'm not biologically yours," I said carefully, "then somewhere—" Her hand flew to her mouth. "My baby," she breathed. Before we could say more, my father called. "I assume you've seen it," he said, triumph saturating his voice. I was right. "You didn't read the whole report," I said. "I don't need to. You're not my daughter." Within the hour, he forwarded the first page to 43 relatives with a single caption: "Truth doesn't hide forever." He hadn't read beyond the first result. He came home buoyant, almost gleeful. "I want you out by the end of the month," he told my mother. "I won't live with a liar." For the first time in my life, I stepped between them. "You're right about one thing," I said evenly. "You're not my father." His satisfaction sharpened. "But Mom isn't my biological mother either." The silence that followed was absolute. He read the second line of the report slowly. I watched his confidence fracture. "That's impossible," he muttered. My grandmother arrived then, carrying a worn folder she had kept for decades. She told him about the nurse who looked terrified, about the rushed shift change, about how she copied the intake sheet before records were sealed. "There were 2 girls born within minutes of each other," she said, and someone panicked. Over the next days, we contacted the hospital. Administrators deflected, lawyers stalled. The head nurse from that night had retired years ago. I found her number. When I called, she answered on the 4th ring. "I was born at St. Andrew's Hospital on October 14th, I said. "You were supervising." Silence. Then her breath caught. "There was a labelling error," she whispered eventually. 2 bassinets, 2 families discharged before the mistake was caught. And by the time we realized, no one wanted the scandal. 2 daughters, switched in 11 unnoticed minutes. I hung up and looked at my mother. She wasn't looking at me like evidence anymore. She was looking at me like something she almost lost twice. My father sat in the same chair where he had delivered his ultimatum weeks earlier. For decades, he had built his identity around being betrayed, around being right. He had accused my mother of infidelity for 27 years. He had nearly destroyed her with that certainty. But the betrayal had not been in their marriage. It had happened under fluorescent hospital lights, in the quiet panic of a mislabeled bassinet. Somewhere out there, another woman had raised a daughter who wasn't biologically hers. Somewhere, another girl might have grown up feeling slightly misplaced, never knowing why. For 27 years, my father searched my face for proof of deception. He found it. Just not where he thought. And the truth that broke our family wasn't an affair. It was 11 silent minutes that rewrote 2 lives forever.